Welcome back to Rodney and Alfie Talk Metal. We're back again this week. I am one half of your host, Rodney McGee. You can find me on YouTube at Rodney McGee and, strangely enough, on the side of several milk cartons. But my partner in audio crime here is...
Me, I am Alfie Williams, and you'll find me on YouTube if you search for Witch Bass, where I talk about all the nerdy gear that our favorite bass players use. And funny enough, today, Rodney, we have our very first special guest.
Wait, what? Ooh. Oh, right. Okay, we do. So, yeah, we're very lucky to have on Ms. March Lowe. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll get into the conversation.
Thank you, Alfie. Great being here. My name is March Lowe. I write for an online magazine called Mosh Mag that's based out of the San Francisco Bay Area. I also run the online virtual happy hour, SF Virtual Headbangers Virtual Happy Hour, and we also have a Mosh Mag YouTube channel where you could find past episodes of the Virtual Happy Hour. I mainly focus on the Bay Area rock scene, so lots of metal bands and lots of independent smaller bands that are up and coming.
Very cool. Yeah, and because you're still doing that currently, and again, as we talked about earlier, you spent a lot of time and had experience in the beginnings of the thrash scene in San Francisco that, you know, became kind of the foundation of metal. I know you'd have a lot to offer in today's topic, which is going to be, has the culture or kind of the mind of metal changed over the past few decades? And if it has it? And then maybe opinions on, is it for the better or worse? So
okay.
We'll,
okay, I got it.
That's a lot to take in.
I know. It's like, wait, now I forgot the first thing.
No.
But no, so basically you're asking me the metal mindset.
I think that
and how it's changed, evolved, or
I'll put out, I guess, my first thought on it about early metal and things, and see if we're in agreement, and then see if these things kind of changed or if they still hold to a lot of kind of the culture of metal now. I always saw it, especially lyrically and things and attitude-wise, as metal being a fairly tribal kind of thing, but the ethos of it, especially when you hear songs like United We Stand, things like that from Priest, a very anthemic type of thing. It was almost like its own little nation, but it didn't have a problem with other people. It was just kind of like this, leave us alone, and if you don't, you'll get a boot to the face type of thing. There was this kind of forward aggression, but an aggression that, wasn't like we're just lashing out all the time. We're angry about stuff a lot of times, but they were as happy to be off to the side, and kind of like, we like that everybody doesn't get it, that there's a little bit of, we are the elite of aggressive and controversial music. And if you don't get it, we don't want you to get it. We're happy if you don't. So that's how like I said, I always saw that type of thing. And I feel personally like that's changed, especially in the past 20 years, that a much different type of message. But I saw it as kind of, in a way, the positive aggression, that you had a self-reliance and I'll get through this, and if I got to kick your ass, I will, but we're going to do this. A lot of lyrical content kind of went with that, and that's where I thought it always diverged from something like punk, where punk seemed to be like kind of turning the temper tantrum into an art form. It was this thing of just like, everything sucks, so I'm going to suck. And I'm just going to scream and break shit and eventually probably destroy myself on the way through. Whereas metal was a little bit like, no, I'll kick your ass and I'll win. And then I'll just walk away, and, that's kind of my thing.
It's much more cocksure, isn't it?
Yeah, a very kind of, and I think it speaks to its roots, a kind of blue collar, I don't need to be a part of you. I'm cool with what I do and my neighborhood and my people. Don't start none, won't be none type of attitude.
Yeah. No, I agree. It is very, like you said, working class, blue collar type of scene, but very loyal to the bands, very loyal to their friends. Bay Area scene was very interesting back then when I started writing for the Informant magazine. That's when I got into the rock journalism, an independent free magazine that was distributed through the clubs like the Omni and the Stone and other places like that. Places that are long gone, but with great memories. The Bay Area metal scene was a very tight community, and it still is. As illustrated by 2 weeks ago, there was a fundraiser for Exodus's Tom Hunting. That was a sold out show. He's suffering from a stomach cancer, and he recently underwent a gastrectomy, which they removed his entire stomach. I heard he's recovering nicely. He's still fighting cancer, but it's going to be a journey.
Yeah, no doubt.
All of the Bay Area really turned out for this show, whether as in the audience, participants, making donations to his GoFundMe fund, buying merchandise, buying raffle tickets. There was a very high profile auction that was organized by a few artists and with a lot of quality prizes that range from like a Yamaha drum kit to many different signed guitars from different artists. So it was a really special night. And like I said, Exodus and those bands, they started in the 80s. Right now we're in 2021, probably more tighter than we have been as a metal community. It was, you were asking me how it was back in the day. It was very competitive back in the day. It was very, we were all from the Bay Area, but everyone was on a certain kind of team violence, team Testament, team Forbidden. Now it's different. We all support each other. The bands support each other, and they play and jam with each other. But we always say back in the day it wasn't so. A lot of trash talking, super competitive. Mind you, these guys were in their teens, 20s.
Yeah. Have a lot to prove.
Yeah, but they all are, still doing their thing. Testament's around, violence is back. Exodus, Heathen, Death Angel going stronger than ever. So it's a great time to still be in the Bay Area and enjoy all this music.
Yeah. And I think that kind of coming together speaks again to there's still that ethos that they started with, or in that community of we'll take care of our own. We it's a very kind of sheltered tribal thing of we don't need the outside help. We don't do this when we have to. We circle and we'll take care of it.
Yes.
And then that's it.
Yes. Very, like you said, just organically came together, a grassroots type of thing. Actually, it was first mentioned by Mark Bierman of Blind Illusion. He was on my show back in April, and he was joking that we're going to do a benefit for Tom Hunting, whether he likes it or not. That type of attitude.
Yeah.
My gosh, and boy, did they. It was a fantastic benefit with 3 bands, Jesus Crisis, Blind Illusion, Boneless Ones, fantastic night. There were some surprise guests. So there was an actual jam, a lesson in violence with members of Exodus, Gary Holt and Rick Honoltz from before. And Keaton DePena from Hyrax was there too. And he sang. So it was just a really special night. A lot of money was raised. The GoFundMe fund for Tom was started by Gary Holt. I think his goal, he put down 50 grand. I think we're over 100,000, over 100,000, and the campaign is not over yet. So that shows you, like you said, we take care of our own grassroots. But I'm looking at the comments and looking at the donations. People from all over the world are donating to this campaign, from, thousands of dollars from like Kirk Hammond and other artists to, $5 just contribution and well wishes. And that just means so much to Tom and just to the whole community.
Sure.
It's really moving. It was really moving to be there and just to see how far we've come and how we've evolved since those old days of F that guy, oh, you suck, all that stuff. I mean, it's far from that. And like I said, going strong, stronger than ever.
I think though there's some natural evolution in that. It's it's kind of like sports teams when you're coming up. It's you do that because you're psyching each other out. It's a healthy competition. You kind of, especially in aggressive music. You kind of see it's like boxing. That's why they stare at each other in the beginning, see if you could psych the other guy out before the match starts. But now they all have their place, and it's kind of thing of like, okay, we all did our thing on the way up, and now that part's over. You don't have to rib the other person and, that type of thing. And it's healthy competition, I think, pushes people.
Yes. Yes. It definitely pushes us to do better and exceed expectations. I agree.
Now, as far as Alfie, as far as you coming up, is there something that you think is different or a perspective that you see as far as early metal culture being that way, or maybe how you experienced it overseas?
Well, my prime time was sort of in the 2000s, so I didn't really see anything before that. And like I said, I was an engineer around that time. So it was all screamo metal and stuff like that. And I will speak about the culture as a whole. But what I know most about is what I engineered, and those bands, they were, again, there's a lot of that cockshow attitude. They're trying to be the best. They're trying to show off and prove themselves. But there wasn't really much of a camaraderie. It was almost like, I don't know, they resented any sort of relationships. They were always trying to upset people as some sort of notoriety, and not in a positive way. It comes to the point where certain bands wouldn't be invited back to play because of their behavior and just general rudeness. And there's a stage presence when you do that, but when you do that to staff and people trying to help you, that crosses the line. And so my experiences from modern metal, if you want to put it that way, I mean, Rodney and I, we've spoken about, is it metal or not, but that's my experience from then. The screamo metal stuff, they just had really poor intentions. So I didn't really have a good experience with them. But thinking about metal for me culturally, you go back to stuff like Black Sabbath, and even prior to 2000s when it became bigger, I say bigger, more culturally known, it was underground and not really taken seriously. You have people like Vivian from The Young Ones. He was a comic slapstick character. They wouldn't take Lemmy seriously until he got on like a BBC show, and you could see, oh wow, he's actually quite articulate and he knows what he's talking about. So there was always this sort of pointing and laughing edge to metal. And nothing I can compare it to like the Bay Area. Like, I grew up on different films and TV shows, and the Bay Area, is the beating heart of metal, and probably where it really did grow in terms of acceptance in the world. So I really don't have any positive aspects of metal in the UK in that sense. If there is, I haven't seen it, unfortunately. I mean, I obviously I've said this on a really negative note. There are metalheads, and growing up in London, there's a bit of everything, and usually there's a lot of crossover between the punks and the metalheads. So there was never really a place to call our own. And like I said, it's a shared space, so there's never really a place to. It's really transient. One day you'll be in a different venue or a pub, and then the next you're somewhere else. So for me, it's been really disconnected, and there's never been one place to call my own as a metalhead. So it's been really difficult for me to lay down roots in such a community.
Got it.
That's all I got. I ran out of steam.
Well, and I guess I'll put out a couple observations and see what you guys think about it as far as that. I've been thinking about it for a while, and I started noticing culturally changes starting, especially like in the early 90s. Like I said, I always saw metal as this kind of thing of like, you know, you can get through stuff. It was positive aggression, a very kind of, again, you know, taking care of our own. We don't need everybody in the club. We kind of like that you don't like us sometimes because, you know, it's that thing of it. You have to judge yourself not only on who likes you, but who hates you type of thing. But then I think you first see that metal kind of lost its title to hip hop as like the early rebellion music for a lot of people because it got too nice. It got too polished. It wasn't the music of controversy anymore. It was, you know, something that became more and more commercial. Even, you know, like Metallica and things started becoming, you know, a bit more polished. They're all over the radio. It's hard to really say that you're, you know, saying something or being something that is only for this group of people when, you know, grandma's singing along to Enter Sandman. Or, you know, and it also just, again, phasing out, losing the throne to grunge, to hip hop. You know, you started having like gangster rap be the thing that scared the hell out of people, and metal becoming more and more pop in a way, just starting to seem quaint to a certain degree. And then as you see grunge taking over and becoming more stripped down and that type of thing, the second type of piece I started to observe is the lyrical content and the attitude, I feel like got kind of absorbed from grunge in that it became a lot more emo, a lot more depressive lyrics, a lot more everything's terrible and that's it. And, you know, I'm not necessarily going to do anything about it. I'm just going to sit here and kind of cry about it, that type of thing. And I think we're still living in that phase. I think that's what kind of gave, like, it allowed the emo and the goth kids to kind of come into it where they had to usually go to a Cure or a Bauhaus concert for that kind of thing and get their eyeliner running and stuff. Now they could get into, you know, Hot Topic and, you know, get some metal stuff and kind of move into that. So I feel like a lot of that is still very present, kind of the legacy of grunge and emo bands kind of changing the overall arc of independence and I can do this and perseverance and positive aggression into something that's a bit more self-obsessed, a bit more self-pitying, and in a weird way kind of circles back to the punk attitude that I thought separated punk from metal. It's like literally screamo. It's like, okay, this is just punk brought back into metal, you know?
Yeah, so, no, that's a good point. Like more self-absorbed. It wasn't like the good old days, like you were saying, the good time metal about us, like our community, our people. It was just about my needs or yeah. No, it's great observation. Great observation.
I think
that's interesting. Rodney, what do you think about so as the metal thing kind of went away, like you said, kind of quaint, antiquated, and we've moved on. But then, like in Europe, right, we have like the whole Norwegian, that whole black metal, death metal scene.
Yeah.
That was kind of its own thing. It seemed like a lot of people that I knew, like in the Bay Area, like that didn't even resonate. That wasn't even really on the radar. It was like, oh yeah, that kind of stuff. What are your thoughts on that scene? And I'm curious to hear from Alfie because he's closer to that than we are.
I'm kind of two minds about black metal. I have a tough time getting into it. I realize this is where mark this moment as the place where the butthurt really starts in the comments. But it has some of the tinge of some later death metal for me too, but it went way over the edge of where it just starts to get a little goofy, where it's supposed to seem so scary, and I'm like, you look like sad clowns to me. Like you just, and I get it. Like I get the whole history behind it. I get, you know, all these things about the mythology behind it and everything. I can't help it. It's like I see that meme with the three guys and the dog, and I'm like,
that's the best.
Yeah.
Yeah. It became a kind of a caricature of itself.
Yeah.
Very quickly as well.
Yes. So, but on the other hand of it, I don't approve of a lot of stuff that was done through black metal and, you know, things like that. There are people who still support bands like Burzum and things like that. And I'm like, no, that guy's a piece of shit. You know, once you put a knife in someone, you're kind of off my listening list. I know it's weird, you know.
The standards are so high, Rod.
Yeah, I know. Well, apparently they are, because there's a number of bands I won't listen to because of, you know, things like that, and people still listen to them. But so in a weird way, I hate how they achieved it, but I liked the idea that there was something actually confrontational and scary. You know, the black metal bands who maybe didn't celebrate that, but did some stuff that was really like, it kind of reminded me of like Hell Awaits era Slayer, where if you weren't into it, you kind of looked at it and went, are these guys serious? Like, it kind of knocked you back a little bit. And that to me was always, metal was supposed to be a little scary. It was supposed to have this edge of like, either it's so aggressive you don't know what to do with it, or are they serious about this confrontational stuff, or, you know, are they really into this weird stuff they talk about? And that was the whole allure of it, and kind of the mystery and danger of it that I feel like is utterly missing from most modern metal now. So I love that black metal did that thing, and these guys would come out and just make kids piss their pants. But I don't necessarily like the method of delivery, either musically or, you know, some of the stuff they were professing. So, but that's an interesting take on it. I guess they were like the gangsta rap of, you know, modern metal, where they just, you know, it became, it kind of became the, you know, the, oh my God, are they serious about shooting someone? What's this?
I have a bit more of a, I guess, a loving relationship than Rodney has described, but I do echo quite a lot of your points. For me, again, growing up, the black metal especially was the butt of many jokes. And I'm not going to go down another negative path here, but for me, like, it was something to be scared of. And I liked my punk rock at the time and just getting into heavier music and guitar bands. And death metal was really hard to access in terms of, how do I even listen to this? And like, what am I supposed to feel from this music? And like I said, like, metal on its own was not accepted, generally speaking, in the UK. So going that one step further to black metal with upside down crosses and burning skeletons, it's totally just the far end of the spectrum in terms of shock value. And it took me a long time to get into death metal. And when I did, you know, it does have a place on my playlist. I really do enjoy it. But I'm kind of with Rodney in a sense that it's just a wild story of how it came to be. I agree with you, Rodney, in a sense that it was taken too far, and it's really hard to find that line between being scary and shocking and portraying you're violent and then being violent and, you know, killing someone. And even now I look at well, I watched that film that came out recently. I can't remember what it's called, about the names of what's the name of the film that came out recently? You know, the one
you mean, the whole dramatization about,
with Rory McCulkin and that one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, it's fascinating to see that visualized. I've heard all the stories, but don't know anything about it other than, you know, what I've heard from hearsay. So I know it's not a biography, it's a dramatization, but even just to see it like that, portrayed in that way, it's just, how do you get from like something like the Bay Area to black metal? I guess it's just the dark winters. You know, you got the sunny San Francisco where everybody loves each other. But no, lack of vitamin D.
Yeah, basically. What did you think about black metal, March?
Yeah, no, the same, hard to get into, because it's like almost like I want to get it, but it's like, it was so, I couldn't, I didn't feel any empathy or anything. I couldn't relate. Do you know? Yeah. Does that make sense? So that's like kind of what you were saying. And then when I read more about these incidences and all this stuff that was going down, like, that is not cool at all. So then I didn't even try to, but they're not all that bad, but there are some that are just really out there, and, you know, the whole violence and all that stuff. I didn't really get into it, but there's a few documentary style films on Netflix or on Prime that talk about it. I'm trying to think of the name. I was trying to look it up. That's really good. It kind of covers that scene. So it's interesting. Yeah. It's interesting. And like you said, you appreciate the efforts and all this scene that just came out of nowhere. And it's just really interesting. So I have to give them a lot of credit, and some of it's interesting, but personally, I'm not into it, but I just wanted your take on it.
Yeah, I think one word you said there actually kind of goes into a topic that I think it's kind of been rolling around in my head, and I think applies to this, is the fact that, and this applies to, I think, multiple genres of music and things, but definitely affects this, is that I don't think we'll ever see the return of scenes again. Because scenes used to build up around interpersonal contact, and things became epicenters. You know, like there was Bay Area thrash, there was the New York scene, there was the Southern California scene, there was the Seattle scene, there was the Detroit scene. Like, these places would blow up, and you would always find that it was a very small group of people, and all of them played with each other, finding their identities. And then they all knew each other, and they all played together, and they created something in a very insular type of way. Whereas now I feel like, you know, that's kind of gone away, and people have become very, you know, insular in not only what they do, but it in a weird way, it's like the artist has become more isolated, where half the time it's one person on YouTube or something like that creating things, or across the web. But it's almost like it doesn't get to incubate anymore, because everything has to be vomited out so quickly and people see it. It's almost like the music is created by committee. Every little clip they see, oh, nobody liked that one. Oh, I shouldn't use that riff. Oh, you didn't get that instant feedback from the peanut gallery all the time, so you could work on your art in isolation until it was done and it developed and you got something really new and interesting. Now, every note you play, the minute you think of it, is getting criticized by someone on the web, and you're trying to fit it into this thing. And I think it's hard to do dangerous and challenging music when you've got, you know, 2 million internet Karens sitting on your shoulders. Like, well, that's not this metal. And oh, God. You know.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. There's a lot of internet Karens. It's like everyone's an expert. But I mean, Rodney, what about you? Does that affect, I mean, you don't seem to be fazed by that, because...
Yeah, because I'm a psycho.
I'm like, and
I think it's just, I guess, maybe having grown up in that environment or something, I still have that ethos of, and I think this gets to my final point, and it's part that I see in my own nature when I do things, is I genuinely don't care. And everybody says, oh, I don't care. No, I don't. Like, if I never sell another album, if I never do, I don't care. Like, I write this because I'm doing something that appeals to me first.
Right.
And the other thing is, I'm not always on social media or something trying to get approval from people. I do it because in a lot of ways, I sit there. Sometimes I genuinely giggle when I write something. I'm like, oh, God, this is going to bother somebody. Like, they're just not. You'll be like, what the hell did you change to that for? And I'm just going to laugh. You know, because it's just interesting to me. It's my own audio playland. So, yeah, to me, in a way, I've held on to that thing of, it's just as important to bother the right people as it is to be liked by the right people. You know, if you're saying something you feel is truly important, the worst thing to get is indifference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Then you've done nothing. If people, I'm actually more suspicious when too many people like something, because I go, this doesn't happen. You're not being honest with me.
Oh my God, I get that too much.
But I think that's finally the end thing where I feel like metal is right now, is I feel like it's kind of like a neutered dog. Because it's now having to live in this environment where, like, I was watching something from, have you ever seen Finn McKenty, the punk rock MBA?
Yeah.
He's always talking about stuff, and something that bothers the shit out of me every time he says it is he's like, well, how come people want to be gatekeepers, and don't you just want more? Like, no, I don't. I want good. I have this ridiculous thing of where you had to be good and you had to be self-assured and something new and different to be respected and take a place kind of in the pantheon of the gods, as it were, or something. I refuse to believe that a Rembrandt is on the same level as some kid's refrigerator drawing. I want more good. I don't want just more because everybody's included. And I think that's the end thing, is there's what I thought was kind of the core metal mission has been replaced by its exact opposite. And that it used to be, we know what we like, and we like to push boundaries, and we like to have this aggression that other people shy away from. And now it's like, well, we have to make sure everybody likes us. We have to make sure we get enough Spotify streams. We have to make sure we get enough clicks. They're not trying to exclude the right people. They're trying to get everybody in. And the only way you do that is by watering it down, turning it to milquetoast bullshit. And in the end, the irony is it fails because nobody likes that.
Yeah. There's no integrity there because they're kind of catering and trying to tweak it so they get this results that they want, versus it's like, this is what we want to play. This is what I feel in my heart. Actually, I had a conversation about the same thing with a person that I know. It's a Facebook friend. Started a band around the time of COVID, really tight, awesome. It's a little bit different from the usual Bay Area metal sound. And he was in those bands. All those guys kind of were. Mm-hmm. So some of the old school, the core people didn't really respond that well, or didn't like or comment. And he was just seemed so hurt and was like, okay, forget it then. He said, you're doing a great work. I said, your songs are really well written, high energy. People love this. So what if your Facebook friends aren't approving? Why don't you stick with it? Clubs are finally starting to open. Shows are finally happening, and you're going to quit right when you should be just, you put out like 5 songs. It was okay. I mean, it was accepted okay by his friends, but I guess not to his liking. So he said, I just give up. I mean, I actually private messaged him twice. I don't know if he appreciated this. I kind of giving him the pep talk. It's like, are you kidding? You actually have something pretty good here. And I could see it going places, but everyone was in a holding pattern, this past year, and lots of people haven't even had a chance to listen to your music yet. Sometimes it takes me a long time. It's like, oh yeah, I'll check that out. I'm like, I'm going to see you. I need to check out your podcast because I'm going to talk to Rodney. Then kind of get that sense of urgency. But that's just how it is. Yeah. I spoke to a friend I used to work with. We met for lunch, and he said, "Oh yeah, I see your podcast," and was apologetic. I went to see some, but I'm subscribed to so many YouTube channels, and I follow this and that. I'm like, oh gosh, it's okay. That's why it's a channel. It's there. It's video on demand. There's no sense of urgency. I've already done it. It's there for you to enjoy anytime. There's no pressure, and I don't, but people feel guilty, when they see you. It's like, oh yeah, I've heard, they want to apologize and stuff, but it's for everyone. It's for everyone at their leisure. And that's the beauty of YouTube and, all these other channels that are on demand.
March, I wanted to ask you, me and Rodney, we talk so much about gatekeeping, and it just seems to be a constant theme in our podcast. I wanted to ask you, how do you feel, or what are your experiences with gatekeeping per se in the Bay Area? Was there a bar of entry for bands, or was everybody accepted, or was there like a dog-eat-dog kind of contest? How was it all in the Bay Area?
I'm trying to think. So are you talking about back when it started, like in the late 80s?
Well,
or right now? Because it's evolved, like we said.
We go with, well, how does it compare? So what's it like now in terms of, I guess you could call it overall acceptance to attitude, skill level, presentation, any of those you want to pick up on?
I think that we're pretty open. I didn't feel, so I think I talked to Rodney about this before. When I first started going to clubs and stuff in the Bay Area, it was the Omni and the Stone. It was more of that glam metal scene. Glam, that type of scene. Started going to those shows. I enjoyed the music, but the scene itself, it wasn't very welcoming to me. I just felt like an outsider, even though I knew like Ron Fresky, he was in this Persuaders, it turned into Babylon AD, I'm sorry, and great music, but no one was that friendly or nice. So then I met some friends from high school, and they said, "Oh, do you know Violence? Do you know like all these bands?" I said, "I've heard of them." They're like, come and check it out. And I'm like, "Where are they playing?" So the same places that I
Uh-huh.
had been to, Stone Omni. The first time I went there, I was like looking around, and it was completely different energy. It was people were so nice. So this was supposed to be the heavy, thrash and like this hard music, but the people were actually pretty friendly and pretty like, "Oh, hi, what's your name?" It's like, "Oh, March. Oh, nice to meet you." It was just so easy. It felt like home. So that's how I got into it. And people generally were very friendly. So it wasn't like, "Oh, who are you? Who are you?" Because we would have some folks, because of the scene was starting to grow, move here from like Las Vegas, Hawaii, and they were great guys and they were fully accepted. I think it wasn't so much the competitive thing is a different level, but just the scene. If you were cool and you enjoyed the music, like you're in. So it was really fun. It was really
That's
fun.
so fascinating. Like, it totally took me by surprise that the glam metal scene would be less inclusive, because they put on this show of like a big happy life of color and literally glam, colorful, and they're like, don't want anything to do with you. But
Oh, am I going to have a field day on this one?
Rodney knows. I can't wait
course,
to hear Rodney's take, being from SoCal.
speaking as like a metalhead myself, like one of us, right? You think of the dark room, all of that in our leather coats and the black clothes, and you think it's just really, I don't know, uninviting, but that's totally not the case. And I'm just so surprised to hear that. And I'm struggling to put my finger on why that would be the case. And I can only think it's just the attitude of, I don't know, focusing on dare I say, a common enemy. I know it sounds really grand, but like a common enemy of, we're the underdog, we're going to triumph. Something like that, where glam is a lot more superficial. I'm sure Rodney has a lot more to say on superficial.
Yeah. Segue to...
All right. Yeah, it brings around basically to what I've been screaming from the heavens about modern metal and what's been going on with it and everything, is fundamentally you have two different aims, and I consider them two different forms of music. Like you were saying with pop music or the more glam things, this was when, I started touring when I was 17 years old. Like graduated high school early, got thrown out onto the road immediately, and it was right as all that shit was just massive. And it was an utterly different experience when we would play with the more, I won't call them glam metal because somebody still has to point out to me what the hell was the metal part of any of it. So just because you play a distorted guitar doesn't make it metal. But when I would play with actual metal bands versus these other ones, it's because there is a completely different focus. And I think that's showing itself today, and why so much of it bothers me, or why I feel like metal as a culture is, kind of off in the background somewhere, is when you have a community of people who take pride in the fact of being self-selected out, that they're like, I want to be around people like me, and I only want to be with people who get it. Like we're going to go over here, and it's we form this kind of tribe, and we're welcoming to anybody who wants to be the tribe, but we don't want your crap. We don't want your chocolate and our peanut butter. Just out, Whereas the more pop something becomes, the pop mentality is, I want to be the biggest possible. I want to be selling arenas. I want to be on everybody's stereo. I want to be in everybody's headphones. It's this all-inclusive megalomania almost of, I want to be the biggest thing ever. And so then the bands become narcissistic. It's like like what March was saying, where you have the competition in between, but it was a competition that fueled each band to go higher and better.
Mhm.
But when it was time to tour, it's like, who do you want to tour with? Oh, those guys. You know, you would always pick the guys that even though you bicker or did your stuff, you wanted to play with them. And whereas, you know, these other bands are doing more glam things or the more pop attitude are the ones that, you know, let everybody in. They don't actually mean that. They mean let everybody into our show. It's all about us. And, you know, so when you see these bands that want to be the biggest thing in the world and that's their main concern, then anybody else is by nature a threat. You know, it's for 2 seconds, you can't be listening to someone else's song. You have to listen to our song all the time, every time. So, you know, that's where you start getting, and it's never ceased to amaze me. And all the things I've dealt with, whether it be in television, movies, you know, you know, when I moved to LA and was around that industry and everything, the more somebody seemed charming in public, the worse human being they were. It absolutely never fails.
Yes.
I said, like, and I said it before and I will, Hollywood and LA is the cesspool of humanity. Every one of those smiling bastards you see on some late night talk show or something, I guarantee they go out to their car and just punch babies or just do something horrible. They're just evil, malignant people. And that's where I think you see that, though, is like they're putting on that face and they can barely hold that mask together. So then they go and do horrible shit. Whereas if you're into metal, you recognize this aggressive part of yourself and you present it as is. So you're not hiding those things. You can get off stage and go like, oh, okay, well, I just, you know, kick the hell out of an entire audience. You want to go get a shake? And that was...
Yeah, that's you hit the nail on the head on that. It's a matter of authenticity.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So that's pure and simple, really. They mean, like you said, what you see is what you get versus the smiles. And then all of a sudden, wait, is the camera still on? And then camera's off. You know, it's like, yeah, it was interesting, but it was great to find the community, that thrash, the metal community. It was just so much fun. And, you know, that went away, that kind of dried up for a while. And it's so shocking, surprising, but amazing at the same time that now in 2021, you know, like I said, Heathen, Violence is back together and they are sounding fabulous. And Testament has been at it, and the latest album is great.
Crushing.
All these albums are great. Mordred, they just released their newest album.
Wow.
Sounds amazing. So it's a good time. It's a good time again. It's a good time. And like you were talking about the scene, I guess there's not a new scene, but it's still that scene. It's the scene from before. It's like carried over to now. But I don't know, like you were saying, any new scenes. I don't know if that'll happen. But that scene is just from legacy scene from before. Yeah. So that was a good point that you made, though.
This to kind of wrap a couple of other points from other shows we've done and things back into this, it kind of goes back and solidifies some statements I've made that even go into like the black metal type of attitude and everything. But I've said that why so many of these, what I call like the second tier big four bands, you know, like Exodus, Testament, you know, all these guys that are still doing it, that they still have a vitality. You can go to a Death Angel show and I'm sorry, but they will absolutely blow most 20-year-old bands I know into the dirt as far as aggression and intensity. And it's not me just because I happen to like that stuff better. It's I like that stuff better because those guys, that's what molded them, was this thing of we do this. We're not trying hard. We didn't grow up in an era of backing tracks and, you know, polished performance and all this. They're still raw, and it's what they know how to do. So you're still getting that. And yeah, I've just seen them mop the floor with younger bands who they've grown up in a culture, and not just metal, but I think culture in general, that's just, it's just neutered is the best way I can say it. Is, you know, everybody is walking around in like a foam suit, and, you know, you're not allowed to bump against the walls a little bit or be threatening. And it goes into even vocal styles. Like I used to teach people how to do metal vocals and stuff, and I specialized in screaming, how to do it without hurting yourself and stuff. And I eventually kind of stopped doing it because I just kept seeing the same trends. And people thought I only liked older stuff for a certain reason, but it feeds into why I said I felt black metal was kind of goofy or something and things, is I couldn't take it seriously, especially like I do with, some of the screamo or deathcore vocals and stuff, because it sounds like a cartoon to me. They're like, oh, it's too heavy for you. I'm like, no, it's not heavy enough. This sounds funny to me. Like you sound like a Scooby-Doo cartoon. Or I've said like
Cookie Monster.
Yeah, like these people go and like doing their best impression of the Hamburglar for like, a song and a half. But I tried to explain it to a guy once and he finally got it. And I said, this actually says that what I see about modern metal is reflected in the vocals too. I don't mind extreme vocals, just not to the constant level that, I see it anymore, because it just, you can't tell the difference anymore. But I said, like, when I hear new vocals, it's like Freddy Krueger. It's supposed to be this threatening thing, but for me, it feels overcompensated. Like, like when you see a guy who is just trying to muscle up and you're like, dude, you're 5'2". Come on.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, you're being scary, but you're playing pretend scary. Like you've moved out of actually scary into, like I said, like Freddy Krueger or Jason or something. It's like I go, but you're not really worrying me. When I hear somebody who sounds like an aggressive, normal voice belting metal or something, I'm like, that to me sounds like a serial killer. Like, see, that's the guy that scares me, the one that actually sounds like a guy would sound if he was coming to rip my face off. That's what has intensity to me, because it sounds like a person driven to the point of furious anger, not, ooh, spooky. That doesn't scare me.
You need to live it.
Yeah, it's almost comical, and unfortunately, I'm the same way. If I can't get past the vocals, I'm not going to give. It's like, but did you hear the drummer or did you hear the guitar? I'm like, I didn't make it that far.
Again, there's plenty of bands I like that do extreme vocals and stuff, but I don't hear it as aggressive in the same way that I do other stuff. I just keep watching people have come up thinking this is the ultimate in heavy, and I go like, you've never been in a fist fight, have you? You don't have that memory of what that guy sounded like before he socked you across the side of the head. You don't have that one in you. And the joke I used to make too is I was like, I'm just too lazy for it. Because I would have, if I did that type of stuff or I was into black metal, I would have to be too perfect all the time. Because you can't screw up and do that. Like, can you think of like one of these guys, all the spikes on his arm and his corpse paint and all this shit, just face planting after tripping on a sidewalk. In 2 seconds, you went from the ultimate evil to a sad clown taking a spill. Nope. No, you cannot screw up ever. So I'm like, I can't.
Gosh, you're killing me.
It just doesn't hold up. It's like I want to see that the guys from Morgoth or something just getting a door slam in the face or something. You look like Sideshow Bob from The Simpsons, or I don't know.
Rodney.
It's when the theatrics become what's going on. Like Slayer has the big theatrics, stuff like that. It's always been there, but when that becomes what the aggression is, rather than you do aggressive stuff and there's theatrics around it.
Right. Absolutely.
It's it's making scary sounds without being a scary person. And when I'll like this, a very primal moment when I was young, there was a club across the street, like 2 blocks away from my place in DC, and I knew one of the doormen, and they used to let me sneak in the back all the time. So it'd be like 14, going in to watch shows. They had these amazing metal shows. I got to see so much stuff coming up, but Armored Saint and Halloween came. And Armored Saint, not known as like a death metal or anything like that, but John Bush has this lion's roar of a voice. And they were on the Raising Fear tour, but to me, their best album, and just ferocious. And I snuck in and I like pushed my way across the stage. I'm like 14 and the guy's foot's like right here. That guy had his shirt off by the beginning of it, slamming water bottles on the stage and just ripping into this mic with everything he had. And I went, this is the scariest human I've ever seen in my life. I'm like, this must be what it's like to try and do an acting job with Daniel Day-Lewis. This is horrifying. Like, just this intensity coming off of him, and just didn't care, sweating, all this stuff. And I just looked at him and I went, he acts like I wish I could get away with. This is that thing. And it's like, I knew this is him.
Right.
Like, not all the time, because he was incredibly sweet. I get to meet him after him, and, you know, like, I modeled my voice after him for years and things. Just an incredibly nice. Yeah, he's such a nice guy. But you know, that's the thing I think it's there is, I know with John Bush, that's no bullshit. Like, he's a nice guy, but there is I bet a switch you can flip in that dude, and he becomes that guy on stage.
He's incredible.
Yeah, you start messing with his wife or doing something like that, and you're going to see that guy I saw, and then it's on. Whereas I don't get the feeling that these metalcore baby, or, you know, they're screaming at the top of their lungs, I want to see everybody jump, and it's like, no, I could take you. I'm pretty sure. Like, we got into a confrontation, you're gonna back down. I'm not believing this one. You know,
you're right.
You're trying too hard.
Yeah. So I could assume that you're not a new metal fan. NU metal fan.
Oh, we covered that one in an episode that's before, but coming up, and that to me was even when it was going on, I was DJing actually for a little while, and they would ask me to put in one or two songs here and there, and I would always introduce it by going, and in this episode of When Jocks Rock, it's time for bro metal.
Oh, you're killing me.
Yeah, it's like, basketball jerseys and metal. It's just two flavors that, I don't know, man. Just.
Do you think that the older metal had a more emotional dynamic range, in the sense that metalcore and all of the more recent metal stuff, it's 100% all the time, there's no room to breathe, and I don't know, it's weird to talk about emotion and emotional range in what we like as metal, but there's space for you to appreciate it. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're not 100% the whole time. Do you think it's something about that? It's too much all of the time? In a bad
March
way.
Do that.
Oh, yeah, because sometimes it calls for it. Like like Rodney said, John Bush, it's like he could be this cool, mellow guy, and then just turn it on. You're like, holy crap, like, where'd that come from? But it fits the song. It's not so forced. I mean, it's just forced when you have that same gravelly for everything, and it's just it becomes a caricature of itself. It's just like Rodney was saying, it's just kind of funny, and you kind of want to giggle and like, oh, I gotta go to the bathroom because I'm like cracking up. I mean, sometimes it works, but it's like in the context of the song, right? It can't always be that voice. But some bands, that's their style, and and that's fine. I mean, it's their choice, but it's just not for me. It's just not for me. When it fits, that roar is genuine. You could feel it, and I'm there all the way. But when it's just becomes just like a farce, then you just got to walk away, and that's time to get another beer or something at the bar. Take a break and go outside to watch people smoke or something. I don't know.
Leave it at that. I mean, I feel like it's almost like I can always hear the kickback immediately from a fan of these styles or something. They're like, well, we have the clean singing, we do that. And I go, yeah, but even that's calculated. It's become such a formula of the whining, like Chester Bennington verse, and then the screaming chorus, and then it's the back and forth, clean, scream, clean. And it's like you're still living off the grunge formula. Like Nirvana was doing this an age ago. I'm having a hard time believing that this isn't like, you don't calculate these parts, especially when it's every one of your goddamn songs. There's variances in the vocal, but the clean whiny part is as fake as the booga booga part. I guess that's what it is it feels like a saccharine product. Like, I don't believe you. again, when I saw John Bush yelling and like soaking the top of my head with a cracked open water bottle, I got the point. Like, I'm on board. Yes, I understand that you are an angry young man. Okay. When I see this stuff, I'm like I've never sat there in an argument with a girlfriend or something, been just balls out screaming, and then suddenly whisper singing, and then going back to this one. I've never gotten that formula in my life, and it doesn't feel emotionally authentic to me. It's like, it's almost like the old. Do you remember the comic Bobcat Goldthwait?
Yeah.
Yes.
Where he used to, I'm like, is this the vocalist for every metal band now? It's like you're like simultaneously the victim and the abuser.
Rodney, what stories do you tell yourself about metal? Oh
it
my
sucks.
God.
No, Chapter
Stockholm syndrome.
You've got this whole. You've got the whole theme of like you're adding your own stories to bands. Like, I just take it as it is, but you're adding layers of like emotional distress to it.
Yes, Rodney's been thinking about it.
Yes, I have.
So what other besides the Cookie Monster? Give me one more pet peeve. Like the newer stuff.
One.
Well,
look through the Dungeons and Dragons.
We have a time limit.
No, I think that's it. It's not a particular thing. Like, I don't hate the extreme vocals. I hate the fact that it's a formula. I don't hate the singing vocals. I hate that it's a manufactured formula, and that alternating them back and forth inside the same chorus, or when here a pet peeve inside of even that thing, when the lyrics don't match that stuff. And I'm sitting here going, I know this is a formula again. It's your emotion does not match this. I'll hear these guys like, the one thing I try to do to appease the general thing here is not call out specific bands, but I think we all know who it is. I'll hear some guy in here just tearing, and then I'll read the lyric sheet. It's like, my girlfriend cut off my allowance. Like, what is this simp bullshit? Like, what are you doing? No, this isn't about love. This isn't about you being a loser and your girlfriend said something mean and now you're crying. What is this? It doesn't match. I don't want to hear about your sorrow and the depth of the bad poetry you wrote on a Hot Topic napkin or something, but you're singing like you're bringing the apocalypse on board. It's like something isn't matching here. This doesn't. If you're making pissed off sounds, give me pissed off words. If you're making whiny cry songs, give me whiny cry lyrics. It works.
Yeah,
see, they have their thing. But yeah, I'm astounded at this stuff where they're like, my forlorn love. It's like, what? It's like, did you not get the Cure audition? What happened here? I don't, yeah. I realize like I'm pissing all over and massacring these bands, and there's stuff out right now that I actually think is really doing well, and I'm hopeful in a few things, and some guys that are doing some pretty honest, newer stuff. But there is just, again, it's so many, like I said, the refrigerator drawing version of metal where it's just like, it's the same crap and the same formula, and I feel like that is being put in place of actual scary. The thing that used to make metal what it was, which was not afraid to be controversial. Now it's, God forbid, we're controversial. It's like, if I have to hear the word metal and inclusive one more time, I'm going to lose my mind. It's like, it's never been inclusive. It's not for everybody. Stop it. Stop trying to make everybody happy.
I thought you were going to say happy. Mega death. Those were the two words you don't want to hear.
Well, yeah.
That's a whole other topic.
Yeah, there was a mega death. But yeah, it just this kind of get back to the idea that you're playing a form of music that's supposed to piss people off. And if Cookie Monster vocals are actually basically pop music, if you can do this stuff and you're at a place where there's 100,000 people watching you, bad news, you're not scary anymore. You're not doing something that's intimidating people. There's moms in this audience. You can't keep riding that thing and go. It's kind of like like the cup of soup of metal or something. It's like, just add scary vocal, okay, it's not confrontational. And like I've mentioned, I think a couple of times in the podcast so far, Nurgle from Behemoth, I feel like he just summed it up in one statement. And I was like, yeah, he just covered it. He said, metal lost its rock spirit. And I went, yes, the songs are edited to death. There's no humanity left in them. Everybody's talking about, do you have a hook in your chorus? No, you're supposed to have a hook in their forehead. It's supposed to be intimidating. It's just become so clean and non-confrontational and scary. And it's like, well, then why are you playing metal? It's like you're wearing metal like a skin mask of some kind of street credibility when you really just want to write pop music for sad kids. I don't get the connection. But yeah, it's all the rough edges have been smoothed off, and now we're overcompensating by trying to add rough sounds to things. And
I agree. It's like a template check, and then it's like the duration too. You notice lots of these bands, like the time, it's like pretty short. They have to be, or else it's like, well, no one's going to play it if it's over X amount of minutes. Because I heard some comments. They released all the tracks and the times, did you see, for Iron Maiden? They're pretty long, and I'm really kind of excited to listen to the new Maiden because they are long. They're not afraid to do the 7-minute song, the 9-minute song. I'm super excited. People are annoyed, like they didn't have time to listen to it. They're like, why are they so long? I'm like, I'm so stoked that they're long. Can't wait to hear them, because
my
no one
point
does
exactly.
that anymore. Yeah.
My point exactly. Every person that said that, you're not one of us. You're not one of us. See, this is what we're supposed to do. You have self-selected out. Why are the songs so long? Go home.
I know. It's like, are you kidding? Are you kidding me? I was elated just by seeing the length. I'm like, wow, because that song, the latest one, we talked about it just offline and stuff. I mean, at first it was, but then it really kind of grew on me, except for the vocal mixes pretty weak.
Yeah, that was noticeable.
But, noticeable. So, but otherwise, it grew on me. So I'm really excited to see. It's like, are the songs going to be like that, or what? I'm really excited how they launched that song with that video. Killer job so far to generate interest. Everyone's just like all eyes, because there's so many releases, you can't keep up. But with that Maiden one, with that video, they really hit it out of the park.
And again, the whole thing, so many releases, so things, nothing special anymore because everybody's throwing at the same thing. You used to be able to just, this band is putting out an album. I guess in the era of mass consumption and stuff, metal got sucked into that idea of more is always better. It's like, no, I'd rather have a smaller dinner that's really well done than a massive plate of shit fast food. and it's constant. And I think I mentioned, I don't know, I think I mentioned it to you, Alfie, once, that I see like that same kind of numbness going over myself, that I'll hear a band that I really love will be putting out an album, and I'm not like, oh, I got to have it that day. I'm like,
I'll get to it soon.
Yeah. And it's just like, because you just, these waves of this stuff. And that to me is the ultimate proof that it's not the same ethos anymore, because you can't have a group that's outsider and self-selecting and, kind of culls themselves from a larger group and have that much output to the point to where people just get numb. There's too much. There's too many strands of straw in the pile. You just can't pick it apart anymore.
No. And I think I mentioned recently that I didn't know there was a new Iron Maiden album coming out. And I was just so surprised with all of this, how tapped in we are to the internet notifications. I didn't see it. I didn't hear about it. It was only Rodney that told me.
Oh, really?
And there's just, there's so much noise that if you're not paying attention at the right time, you'll miss that bit of news.
Yes.
It's that quick. And
it's good point. No, I was looking at YouTube and it said live premiere. So that's why I knew. But like you said, everyone was talking about it for probably at least a week. But then now it's, that was 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's short attention span. I mean, I thought people would be I'm sure we'll be talking about it again when they release the album, because they're doing a really good job of promoting, like doing that one with a really great video, very different song. You need to check it out after the show. Let me know what you think. And then showing the rest, like all the tracks and all the durations. So it kind of, like Rodney said, just got me excited. I'm like, something to look forward to. So I think they're doing a really good job with the launch, because it's generating interest. People, kind of keep people talking about it until the launch. So
good.
Kudos. Yeah.
That's hard to do these days.
It really is. It really
and
is.
I think that's part of it too, is that they shut up. And again, it keeps circling back to that same thing of part of the reason why metal bands had so much mystery was they didn't get press all the time. That it wasn't, like I could go, Christ, on Facebook anymore, and it's like, oh, here's the guys from Periphery's colonoscopies. What else can we stick? Like, Jesus, can you just stop for a minute? And, but back when you had Slayer or something like that, there wasn't an interview every 2 minutes. You had to make up in your head your own kind of myth about these guys, and that created mystery and interest. And
yes,
you were kind of afraid to go to the show. I remember seeing sneaking in to see the Rain of Blood tour. I damn near pissed my pants when they started that thing up. I mean, they had Lombardo on like this 15-foot, like 2001 obelisk thing, and his drum kit up at the top was just this blue light behind it, and I can barely make out the upside down crosses on the back of the thing, and there's storm sounds and everything, and I just hear dum dum dum. I'm like 14 years old, like, holy shit. And people stage diving off second story balconies inside the place. It was just absolute insanity. And then you don't see them again. Then you might hear an interview, and again, their interview was about sculpting it, their image and what they were going to give to you. It wasn't this constant, oh, here I am on Instagram, and then 4 seconds later I'm over here and over there. It's like, just stop.
Yeah, it's too much. It's too much. It's too much. And I don't care. Like my daughter always says, no one cares. No one gives a shit. Just start to see that. And she's 12, mind you. So whenever I, do stuff or like try to put some stuff together, articles or put the video or write something, it's like, I'll look at it with her voice in mind. Like, does anyone care about, oh, no, not too much. Like less is more, Rodney, right? I mean, pretty much it's like, it was more special. You're like, oh my God, Metallica in the newspaper. I still have clippings from back then. They were never, no one talked about that. They weren't in magazines. And when they made the BAM magazine cover, it was a big damn deal,
Exactly. And
but it's different. And yeah. And it's so accessible. Everything's like so free, like Spotify, YouTube. So that's why we're not excited. It's like before you'd hear the single, right? On the radio, maybe. And then, of course, you're going to go get the album, unheard. You don't know what songs sound like, but you're going to buy it. But now you're like, oh, I better just check it out first on Spotify, and perhaps I'll buy it. Yeah. So it's changed. It's changed a lot. Good and bad, because it is accessible. Bad because it's so accessible. It's not as valuable in a way. It's like, it's not a commodity. It's like, it's there, it's free.
So. We have an episode coming up on that one too.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I've been doing some more research into that and everything, but there's a whole psychology behind that's going on too. And I get just one piece that kind of occurred to me in this before, we go on to that one, is just because we're on that topic, is again, like when you had these early albums and things too, is that it wasn't just an album or something. These were the tokens you surrounded yourself of a culture. Your culture wasn't in something this big, and, it's just, well, it's this thing I do. And the rest of your life looks totally different maybe than what you did. Like this was, these were your emblems, the flags of your country in a way. You had these things. But I started realizing that when I was having to go out and search for a couple of albums, like we were talking last week about some more obscure bands that people forget, invented genres that people are trying to act like they invented now. And I'm going, this album isn't on Spotify. And then I'm even having a hard time finding it on YouTube. And it started occurring to me that, we're supposed to have this incredible volume of information, but we are already entering into an era of completely losing
Yes.
our art because we don't get it and own it anymore. And anybody who from one of these large companies can just take it. It's like, oh, you're not on Spotify anymore. Okay, well, there goes all access you ever had to an album that you may have loved because you never got a copy of it. Or like with movies and things and going into music, you're only going to be able to get the revised censored copy of something. Oh, we're going to airbrush this. We're going to add that. We're going to cut out this politically incorrect part.
Yes, it's all improved. It's the 2000 whatever version. And you're all, no, I want the original version, but you're not going to be able to.
And those are going to go away. Yeah, because
Yeah.
What if Netflix decides, well, this is the version we carry now? Now you're screwed.
Yeah, that's the danger when you do get rid of physical media because, there's so many streaming, we have Hulu and Netflix and HBO Max, Disney Plus.
Mhm.
And then my daughter wanted to see something. I'm like, wait, I can't find it online, And then I was like, maybe I'll actually go to the library. And so we put a hold on it, got the DVD and found it. But yeah, you're right. If you don't have that digitized version online, you may as well have never existed. It's just kind of wiped from.
Yeah. It's
interesting when you think about it.
It's a little Orwellian in a way, but it's, especially with outsider culture, it's like these things aren't getting re-released. They aren't being redone. Like I told him about and passed on some songs from Forced Entry.
I love them.
I argued that they were the template for Gojira.
They were amazing.
You can't find it anymore.
It's at my mom's house. It's stuck in the CD case.
There you go.
Or in Castro Valley. Please help me get it out.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I've been trying to find copies of it, and it's like you can find somebody uploaded it to YouTube, but wait until that gets a copyright strike, and then it's done.
Yeah, I know.
That one isn't on Spotify. The first album isn't, and I was like, great. Second thing, I noticed I love the original Simpsons seasons and everything. They were fantastic, but if you watch them on Disney, they've broadened it out and cropped out the top and bottom of the screen. So now some of the jokes, you don't even understand them because the typical thing is off screen. It's like, well, if I don't own these seasons.
Yeah, you're at the mercy of.
Mm-hmm. And it started.
Yeah, that's the danger. That's why I'm hoarding my Simpsons DVDs.
Exactly.
DVDs downstairs.
Save the Simpson fan base once and for all.
But I think, like I said, this goes into that cultural thing and kind of, more relevant on what we're talking about is that this goes to kind of prove that these were outsider things and they're not being carried along. They're being forgotten about because it's not in that, it's been pushed out en masse to people. It was for a specific amount of people.
Yes.
And only those people had it. Mm-hmm. And those things meant something. Having that CD, I can remember going to someone's house with a physical copy of something and like, you need to hear this instead of check out my playlist. Oh, good. Yeah. Do more shit at a distance. That's helping humanity. But having that and being able, and it also makes a commitment that it's not this, it's like Spotify to me is like when you go on a date with somebody and they put their cell phone on the table. It's almost like this thing of like, I just want you to know at any second, the minute you get boring, I have options. It's Spotify's like this. You're not getting to the chorus fast enough.
Next.
I know. You put it in and it's like, I have physically made an effort I don't want to repeat. So I am now committed for at least 3 songs here. You're going to have to really start to bug me. But then I also get deeper into the music and I'm forced to, God forbid, do something that isn't a candy bar. I'm going to go deeper into it. And that's why, again, outsider music was important. It took more of a commitment. That's always been the big thing in between the two is outsider music was hard to get into, but it had more value. Mm-hmm. Pop music was something that wasn't hard to get into, but it wasn't hard to get out of. You could just be like, remember that song we never listened to anymore? It was fun that summer. Whatever happened to that, people? And then you have the one-hit wonders and the things like that. It's because, this was fun when I was in this month, and that was it. But, owning these things and actually having, a part of yourself locked into it, that to me was that culture of metal. And again, a tribe and something where people didn't want it to be for everybody. So it was kind of like you had your albums. You were like, no, I don't think you need to hear these. I got my stuff. This isn't for you,
Yeah, absolutely. And it wasn't like you had unlimited funds. So I was looking, I thought I had so many, but you only had a certain amount of money back then, especially when we were kids. It's like, so you're going to pick and choose. It's like, is it this one or this one? So the ones that are in there, it's not like I just bought a bunch and whatever. It's like they meant something because, you're going down the aisles going, is it this one or is it this one? Because I can't afford to buy both of them. So they were very special and they still are. I finally have a record player now. And it's been a lot of fun to revisit stuff and play stuff for my daughter, and it's been good.
Yeah.
Were you ever part of the tape trading scene as well? Was there a lot of that going on?
Yeah.
To March, yeah.
Oh yeah. I would get tapes, but I never give anything because I was writing for that magazine, so people give you the demo tape. So so I have a bunch of from back in the day. I should take some pictures and show you some of those bands that I got. So, but that was a big thing. I just had a beer with a friend that was into he was kind of like the bootleg cowboy. So he would have the video camera. This is way back, like, the 90s and stuff. And he did really well. And he did the tape trading with other people with these rare things because not everyone had a cell phone. Like now there's like thousands of videos, no one posts them, so they're still lost because they're trapped on the phone. That was the thing. That was the thing with tape trading and like video trading and stuff in the scene here. That was a big thing. What about you? Was there anything?
Bootlegs. I was actually speaking to my fiance the other day in Camden Market, which is a very trendy place. Well, it was in the 90s. I used to hang out in Camden all the time. And there was this one guy, if anyone is from London or went to Camden, he'd be at like the top of the arch going down to the canal and he'd have all of these bootlegs. And I just stare at him and go, wow. But as you were saying, March, like you have to pick and choose which one you buy. Like, do I get that one? Or so, a lot of decision making. But that's as far as I got with like trading or sharing. It's just bootleg stuff. And my social circle was very small, like just 2 or 3 people. So there wasn't really a whole lot of trading going on.
Oh, I see.
But there's a lot of word of mouth stuff. Like in my, when I was growing up, it was all about cable. So like my best friend had cable and he had a music channel. It was Kerrang in the UK. He's like, oh, there's this band on Kerrang. You've got to see them. It's like we'd race over to his house and it's all that word of mouth kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more that sort of medium of TV and watching Kerrang rather than sharing a media, which is very different.
See,
what is the name of that heavy metal bar? I don't think it's there anymore in Soho.
Crowbar?
Remember? Is that the one? And it was like all played metal. It was like a metal bar. Yeah.
As far as I know, Crowbar was the main heavy metal bar.
Yeah, okay.
Or the Fox and the Hound, which has now been demolished, but I don't think that was as big as Crowbar. I think Crowbar's the biggest.
Okay.
And that's still there.
Okay. I'll have to look it up. I can't remember, but it was fun. I was like, oh my God.
That's the one that comes to mind, yeah. Was it really small inside?
Can't remember, but I'll look them both up. Fox and the Hound.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the same, again, that same thing of that was how you found that tribe, though. It was like the person who would run over to your house and go, you got to see this thing. It was like, then you knew it had the same levels of importance and that they were like you. Yeah, that there was that thing. And at no point did you sit watching that thing and hanging out together and do it and sit there and go, all right, we got to figure out how to get more people to come and watch this. Like
it's like our secret, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It was like, we get it, and we like that we get it, and we like that the neighbors are probably going, "The hell is wrong with those people?" You appreciated that thing of, and that's where I think that there are some. Again, I know these words have become anathema to anything, but they're a bit of elitism, and not elite as in I'm better than you, but elite as in I can appreciate and understand and work within this music. You know, having that self-selection and going like, we're part of a group that gets this. You know, other people have their thing. Like, I don't get your sports thing or your car thing, but we get this.
Mhm.
And so we become the caretakers of it and the people who value it and do something. And we're not always going to let people who just want to come and play, who just want to come and
Casual.
screw around. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a commitment over here. You know,
Yeah,
you know, so I'm sorry, Poison. You don't get to be called metal.
No, that's a great
Yeah.
point. And Rodney, remember when Headbangers Ball started? That was a big damn deal. That was so huge. It was like, oh my God, I gotta be home, you know, to see it. Because you never saw that on TV.
Yeah, your life revolved around it. It was,
Yeah,
you know,
really, pretty much.
Yeah, it was. It was like, are you going to go out like all the other kids? Again, you self-select out. The other kids, oh, we're going to go out to this beer bash. We're going to do this on Saturday night. What are you going to do? Headbangers Balls on.
Yes.
Oh, you know, speaking of Headbangers Ball, like, I'm sure, well, I hope it was on prime time in the UK. Well, I say prime time, a decent time in the UK. Like, we had MTV and MTV2. And I remember me and my friend, we come back from like a night of drinking. It's 3 a.m. in the morning and we're sitting there on his couch, just like watching Headbangers Ball. What is this Cradle of Filth thing? This is nuts. And, you know, like 3 a.m. in the morning, like no one's going to watch it at 3 a.m. Like, what time was it on for you guys?
It was like, what? It was not 3. It was
start like 11 or 12.
Yeah, it was later.
Then.
Oh,
Yeah.
I guess it wasn't prime time. They
No. Reasonable, like, you know, awake hours.
Yeah. Was it 10?
I don't know. I remember it being like, especially at the beginning, like late. Well, do you remember when it first started out, it was only a half hour long and was at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, it evolved. I'll have to look at the wiki to see what the...
I can remember, like, if I ran off the bus to school to get home, I could get in the door 2 minutes before that thing went off. It was like immediately like leaping like Mission Impossible style to hit the record button on the VCR. You know.
Yeah, totally bringing back memories, just like rushing and you know, but you know, yeah, you made time for it. That's what you live for. Like you said, all week you're just waiting for that. You're gonna play that new blah 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 video. I can't wait. You know, it's just like make sure. Like,
you have such a point of making time for something.
Yeah.
If you care about this thing, you're gonna block that off in your calendar, you know, of your life, and say, "This is my time to indulge in something that I like." We don't have that anymore. It's just like, you know, like we've been saying, like with Spotify, next track, YouTube, next video, Facebook, next post. There's just no time to focus and sit still and just be mindful of what you're consuming. And I think that's a big part of it as well, just losing that connection and appreciating that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Or these playlists are fun, and you know, we all made mixtapes and stuff. And that was very manual and a very labor of love, but just listening to the records, like I was saying, now that I have a record player, and sometimes, you know, sometimes you just remember these songs by the order of it, but now, you know, no one really plays it just like beginning to end. So it's very out of context. Do you know what I mean? So you're just expecting a certain song. You're like, after that song, it's that song. Like just in your brain, you remember this stuff, but it's totally different now, right?
I've never done that. I've always been an album person. I just can't listen to singles. And like you said, like you have that intrinsic memory. This song is next, and you already you have a pre-roll in your head. Like I've never. If I have to listen to an album, I'm in the mood for this album today. There's no single swapping. It has to be the full length album.
Yes.
In one sitting.
Yes. Now we're like, oh, I don't think I have time for that. But I always make time. I mean, yeah. So it's fun to kind of slow down and listen to the albums. And, you know, I showed my daughter, she's like, what's that? It's like that magnetic. I finally got one of those brushes to get all the dust off. She's like, oh, interesting. You know, because skips, it's like that just doesn't exist in digital world, right? So it's just interesting to see her experience and how, you know, her intake. It's like, what's going on? How come it's like that? Like, and then you have to flip it. What do you? They said you have to flip it. Like, what do you mean flip it? I'm like, take the thing and flip it over. She's like, oh, there's another side. Like, she's just like, wow, it just rocked her world. So it's been fun. But yeah, so I said, yeah, the struggle is real. You have to like press play again. It just doesn't, and flip it and clean it.
Well, I think the horse in the corner has stopped moving, so we're going to quit beating this one. But I think we're pretty well established, and the verdict is, regardless of what you think of it, metal's culture has changed. Maybe you like it, maybe you don't. I feel like its initial mission kind of needs to be rediscovered because it's not pop music. So we should, I don't know, maybe stop treating it that way. But I'll let everybody kind of sign off. But this has been a lot of fun, and I really appreciate Marsh, you coming on and hanging with us and giving the information that only you have.
Thanks for inviting me.
Of course.
It's been my pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
Marsh, it's been great to have you. I've had a lot of fun. I hope we can have you back on again. There's so many questions that I really want to ask you, but we'll save that for next time. So we hope you can come back.
Thank you. Love to. Bye-bye.
All right. So that's going to wrap this one. We'll see you next time. See ya.
Bye.